up in hell, and vice versa. Do you know this hadith?
This hadith is a correct hadith, but there's also another one which throws more light onto this topic, which is that there will be people on the Day of Judgment which will have excuses. So one of the excuses is if you live in between the time of messengers, if you live in between Jesus and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, or Moses and Abraham, if you are too old, or if you didn't understand, like loads of categories of people who did not get the message. Because God says in the Quran, He doesn't punish until He sends a messenger.
And that's what I mentioned to Rob earlier.
We believe in justice from that perspective, and also that there's something within the human being which is an innate feeling, an innate state that you're in. And that innate state that you're in, it drives you towards the Creator. So even if Islam as a religion did not exist, and Christianity did not exist, and we were in Europe 10,000 years ago, we would still have people worshipping God because of this innate disposition within them. Which is even why, if you look at the Soviet Union, which was, if you like, the biggest social experiment to try and impose atheism on a large scale. And what did it achieve? According to Pew, just a few months ago, they released some research showing that the vast majority of people still believe in God. In fact, it's increased after the collapse of the Berlin Wall. So religion is not something that you can get rid of by trying to impose atheism on people. Because it's just part of people's nature to worship God. That's the Islamic.
Or they'll find something else to worship.
Yeah, like Stalin and Lenin, Stalin and celebrities.
It's no use you come with
No, but it's
that's
the
not
same
true at all.
thing. They'll put all the adoration and everything into that.
Yeah,
And if that celebrity likes a particular brand of car, and they'll go and get that particular brand of car, which is why certain people sponsor football teams, because if, for example, Vodafone sponsor United or whatever, then whoever supports United is more inclined to go to buy Vodafone because. So this is the same thing, same principle.
I'll tell you why that's not true.
Why
If
what's
you
not
were
true?
brought up, if you were brought up in a headhunting society, you wouldn't think twice of going and chopping somebody's head off to me. There's no morality in that.
Well,
If you were brought up in that society, that's it. You were saying that morality is something, there's an absolute morality. If you were brought up in that society, you wouldn't think twice.
Right. So
you wouldn't think it's
here's your
there's
problem.
nothing
Here's your problem. You have to define what morality is.
You've got to define. You were saying there's an absolute one, so you.
No, you asked the question.
You have got to
Did you
define
ask the
what
question?
absolute.
You said is there an absolute morality, isn't it?
You said that there is.
Did you ask me that question? Did you ask the
You
question?
said that there is.
Did you ask the
supported
question?
the idea
Did you ask the
of your
question?
friend.
But did you ask that question?
What's
Yes, I did
your
ask him
belief
the
though?
question.
Right.
What's
So
your
do
belief
you
about
understand
it?
your question?
So how would you explain the fact that people want to turn towards God? This is a universal thing we have. By universal, I don't mean literally every single human being, but every single language pretty much has a word for God. Every society has some sort of worship ritual. So from an atheistic perspective, how would you explain that human instinct?
God means different things to different people.
Because we didn't know any better.
Some
So
people think God is a
the
man.
lightning came down, we would, oh, that's a God. We don't believe.
Okay.
So it's God of the gaps.
Yeah, so there's a
So-
God there to explain things we don't
God
understand.
means different
Now,
things to different people.
if that is the case, then we still have people believing in God even after the scientific revolution. And also, the belief in God is not just based upon logic. So, for example, somebody may say there's lightning that took place. So, I don't really understand how this phenomena works. Therefore, I posit a creator. And some people have done this. It's known as God of the gaps. But a lot of other people, they don't even go that far. They say, I believe in God because it just feels right. They don't use inference or logic. It's just something within them. So how do you explain that instinct, not inference?
Why do you think it's an instinct?
Well, there's a lot of evidence for that, actually. Psychologically, we know that vast... Sorry?
Give me some.
Well, there's some research that was done a few years ago on Japanese school children, which showed that there's a tendency of children to basically incline towards theism. And there's a book published...
What's it called?
there's a book published by Oxford University called Why Would Anyone Believe in God? It's by Professor Justin Barrett of Oxford. And what he basically does is he, according to studies, says there's a natural inclination for people to believe in God. And likewise, there's Dr. Olivia Petrovich, again from Oxford, and she's an atheist. And what she says is this. She says, atheism is an acquired position, right? By default, there is a theistic inclination in children. She's a development psychologist. The interesting thing is, she herself is an atheist, and she says atheism is an acquired position. So my question to you is, as an atheist, how would you explain that innate instinct?
Okay, so I reject your claim that it's innate. And both of your examples, there's been refutations posted online and sent to yourselves. I don't know if you've got them on both of those.
Sent to IERA, etc.
Sure. On this from Essence of Thought and others.
Sure.
So the claims are not what you claim, that they have an innate disposition to theism. What they have got is an innate disposition to believe in the supernatural and the superhuman.
Okay, that's
very
fine.
different.
Okay,
but
so
then you make an inference that it's a supernatural thing. That's not
sure,
the case.
sure, but when we're here to have a discussion, it's very easy to throw out authorities and say Essence of Thought refuted you or whatever. What I want you to do is this. I want you to explain to me what you just said right now, which is that there is an innate disposition to believe in supernatural. Right?
I didn't say that. I said superhuman.
Superhuman. Okay.
So in other words,
superhuman. So, if there's an innate disposition to believe in something superhuman, something supernatural according to them, okay? Let's stick on that because we agree there.
we agree that it's superhuman abilities, yes.
Okay, they use the word supernatural. Okay, that's what Dr. Olivia Petrovich uses. That's what Dr. Justin Barrett uses. Sorry?
I don't think that's true, but let's assume that it is.
Okay. But
do you know what the experiment, or one of the experiments was?
Okay, wait. Let me just do this for a second. Before we move on, I just want to correct something that you tried to do, which is when you didn't have an answer, you just decided to throw out an authority. That's why I'm challenging what you say.
What did I not have an answer for?
Because when I asked you, why is there this instinct to believe in a creator?
Yes.
And I gave you some research for it, right? You just said, well, Essence of Thought refuted this, and this isn't exactly what they're saying. When I also gave you the example of the Soviet Union as well. So the idea that belief in God is instinctual, is innate, is something which psychologists and anthropologists and philosophers of science discuss. It is something which is being discussed. Now, I agree. There are people who say it's nature. There are people who say it's nurture. There are people who say, what's the point of having nature and nurture? Maybe it's just there's a biological component of it. So what I'm asking you, rather than getting away from the topic, is, as a naturalist, which I'm assuming you are if you're an atheist, how do you explain the existence of the concept of God from a purely naturalistic point of view? How does natural selection gear for that?
Okay, so you've gone off slightly from what you originally said. You originally said that young children, because it's not everybody, is it? So it's young children have got an innate disposition towards it.
Well, the Soviet Union, which I was referring to, the study, they didn't say young children or old children. What they did say, according to Pew, is that after the collapse of the Berlin Wall, the belief in God actually increased in Ukraine, in the Soviet satellites, in Russia itself. The belief in God and religiosity actually went through the roof.
How are you tying that back to us having an innate disposition towards God? Because originally
people are turning back to God.
Yeah. So how is that fundamental? How's that a foundation for the people are born with this innate disposition?
Just so that we don't talk past each other, let's agree on some basics. Do you agree there are people in the world, the vast majority of the people in the world, believe in God?
Correct.
Okay, let's just agree with that. Okay, explain that from an evolutionary perspective.
As I said, because we didn't know any better, so it's our ignorance. We went, oh well, we don't know what it is. There must be something out there. God has evolved, hasn't it? There's millions of gods. There's different ones. They've evolved over time. And today we have generally the Abrahamic religions, which is like a single God. Apart from Christianity,
okay, so I asked you to explain that in terms of natural selection, but you haven't explained that.
Why would I explain it in terms of natural selection?
Because as an atheist, that's all you have.
Your claim was that we have an innate disposition towards God, and I asked you, give me some evidence.
Well, the evidence is the vast majority of people believe in God.
Can the vast majority of people be wrong?
Yes.
Okay, so that throws that argument.
Wait, you're forgetting something. I'm not. you're misrepresenting my argument. I'm not saying the vast majority of people believe in God, therefore belief in God is correct. I'm saying the vast majority of people believe in God, so from an atheistic perspective, how do you explain that?
I've just told you. If the vast majority of people didn't believe in God, would that make God not exist? Or would it be innate if the vast majority didn't believe in God? Because you seem to be claiming like an ad populum fallacy, which is because lots of people believe something, I need to explain why lots of people believe it.
Okay,
Yes?
wait, hang on. That's not a fallacy, and you're just throwing out that fallacy without actually understanding it. Scientists, what they do is they take a popular phenomena and they try to explain it. That's what evolutionary psychology is about, correct? Right? So what's wrong with me saying the same question which Steven Pinker or somebody else would say? Why does religion exist? That's essentially what I'm asking you
And
as an
I've told
atheist.
you, I mean, do you want me to repeat it again?
Well, I'm saying your explanation is not in line with your worldview.
Why not?
Because your worldview is a naturalistic worldview, correct?
Yes.
So you have to explain everything naturalistically, correct? So can you explain that naturalistically? How does it give a survival value to believe in God? How does it make
Well,
sense
I'm not
that
an
this
evolutionary biologist or an evolutionary psychologist, so if you want to ask me the specifics, all I can tell you is...
But you believe in that, right?
I believe in what?
You believe that we evolved.
Yes.
That we evolved by natural selection.
Yeah.
You believe that, okay? So since you believe that, why do you give me an explanation of why you believe that?
Why do I give you an explanation?
No, why don't you
for?
give me an explanation in line with your worldview or where that belief came from?
Which belief?
Okay, let's just go on
Okay,
to
so
basics.
you're
here.
moving off to evolution. Your original claim to me was we have an innate nature
Yeah.
to believe in God.
And what did I
you
say?
cited some studies.
And what did I say?
And I rejected that, and I said to you, those studies do not
Okay,
infer what
okay.
you
Do you know
say
what?
they
Do you know what we'll do for the sake of argument? We'll throw those studies out. We'll agree on something that I don't think you'll disagree with, which is the vast majority of people believe in God. Okay. So now we have a popular phenomena which we need to explain. Okay. Now, from an atheistic perspective, that there's no God and natural selection explains human evolution, right? How do you explain the fact that people believe in God? That was my question.
Yes. And I said to you, because people are ignorant, they don't know any better, and they, what's the word? They will look at things in the world and go, I don't understand
You're referring
this.
to God of the gaps.
Yes.
I'm asking you to give an explanation in terms of your worldview.
Have I not just given it to you?
No, you haven't.
Okay.
Well,
so
you've actually,
give me a clue as to what you're looking for.
Okay, what I'm looking for is this. If I was an atheist, what I would say is, well, I have to explain this using naturalism. So if I have to explain this using naturalism, I have to explain a belief in God in terms of survival and reproductive value, which is what Richard Dawkins tries to do, which is what Steven Pinker tries to do, which is what I would expect an atheist to do, rather than speak about God of the gaps. That's totally irrelevant.
So you want me to give you information on evolutionary biology or evolutionary psychology?
No, I want you to give me information which is in line with your worldview, because you believe that worldview to be correct.
Sure. So
I ask you questions.
I don't know what you want me to give you. What words do you want to give me? I think that people have evolved over time, and over that period of time, when they couldn't explain something, they went, look up there. Like if I was born 500 years ago and I didn't know how electricity or lightning formed, I'd go, my word, that looks like that could come from a god or something, because I can't explain it. It's very powerful. Or maybe it's a god that did that, because I don't know. Now we understand that, we no longer do that. And the more we push back with science, the less there is an explanation required for a god or gods.
Okay, so if what you said is true, and what I'm going to do now, Rob, I'm going to take what you said and I'm going to extrapolate it. What you just said is that people believed in God because of God of the gaps. And because they believed because of God of the gaps, as science is progressing, religion is regressing. Right? Is that in line with what is actually going on in the world?
Seems to be. Why would you say not?
Okay, here's why I would say not. According to Pew, by the year 2070, Islam is going to be the largest religion on earth. Christianity is also going to increase, and guess what? Your group, the atheists and agnostics, are actually going to shrink by 3%. So, if science is progressing, which I'm assuming which is what is happening today, then why is that happening? And I'll tell you why it's happening. It's because the arguments that you're putting forth don't actually make sense, such as people believe in God because of God of the gaps. Science explains how things work. God is an explanation of why things exist. So it's a category mistake, which atheists have been doing for a very long time, and the whole God delusion book is about that category mistake. And even other evolutionary thinkers like Michael Roos, He says, I find this embarrassing. And he's an atheist. He says, I find the God delusion embarrassing. To say that all of theism is based upon the fallacy of God of the gaps. That line of thinking does not make sense. So I want you to give a justification for your worldview based upon your worldview.
I don't know what else you want me to say. You keep asking the same question. I keep giving you the same answer.
Well, you don't give me an answer.
You're rejecting my God of the, your words, not mine. God of the gaps. I think people were ignorant, and therefore they.
We moved on beyond that. You made another claim which I challenged. Your claim was, as science is progressing, religion should regress.
Correct.
Right?
And your claim is no, it's not.
Well, not me. According to Pew, by the year 2070,
why is that happening?
Islam. Okay.
Why is that happening? You tell me. Your explanation is what?
Well, I'm happy to move on to why that's happening, but I want you to concede that you don't have an answer, and the claim that you made is actually false, which is as science is progressing, religion is regressing. No. I'm happy to move on, but as long as you admit you're wrong.
Okay, so and your reason for suggesting that science is progressing and religion is regressing, your reason is because more people believe. More people are becoming theistic. Is that your reason?
Okay, what you've actually said there is a truism, right? Roses are roses. Of course there's an increase because people are believing. If they weren't believing, it wouldn't be an increase.
Correct, and the reason you say that is happening is because
I never said a reason. I just challenged your fallacious thinking that increasing the scientific worldview will actually decrease the belief in God, but it doesn't.
I'm saying that I'm talking about the knowledge, not necessarily that people will believe or not believe. So I'm talking about scientific knowledge, yes? That doesn't necessarily translate that everybody in the world...
Okay, so what's your claim about scientific knowledge? That
it's improving and it's growing. Would you agree with that, or would you say no?
No one disagrees with that it's improving. But your claim was it's growing and religion is going down.
Apparently science is
what I mean by that is...
So you're basically claiming that the more we discover about science, the less we're going to believe in God.
Correct.
Okay, but that hasn't happened.
Yeah, that's the point.
And the other thing is, the scientific method came together. It was actually made by a Muslim, Hassan ibn Haytham, approximately 1,000 years ago. He was a Quranic scholar, and he was the first scientist, according to even secular historians like David.
I'm not sure that's the case, but what's that got to do with anything?
No, that goes totally against your claim, because if what you're saying is correct, then an atheist should have come up with the scientific method, not the Muslim.
And what was...
And atheists haven't done much, frankly.
Trying to separate
you haven't sent us to the moon, haven't done every technological advancement on the planet.
Okay, wait. Let me tell you, right? That's actually totally false because of two reasons, right? Number one, we went to the moon based upon Newtonian mechanics. Guess what? Isaac Newton was not an atheist. He was a devout Christian.
Are you kidding me?
And the greatest thing that he believed he achieved in his life was to die a virgin, right? He was not an atheist.
Are you kidding me?
Two. Secondly, the scientific method, its product is space exploration. So if we went to the moon, that's based upon science, and the first scientist was a Muslim. So atheists did not lead us to actually go to the moon.
Okay, so you've made an awful fallacy. You've said because Newton was a Christian, therefore Christianity is true, or Christianity is the basis, or something about Christianity and science.
Okay. Anyone watching? Did I say that? Did I say that? No.
Okay. Do you want to ask everybody else? Anybody else put up their hand? Do you want to speak to me, or do you want to have an audience participation?
I'm just really
You
baffled.
told me that because Newton discovered the laws, what?
He wasn't an atheist.
No.
So what?
Your claim was we went to the moon.
What?
We went to the moon.
That's completely irrelevant.
Wait. What I want you to do is this. Take a step back. Think about it. What have atheists actually done? They keep talking about science. You know, woo. We're all about science. But what have you guys actually done? That's what I want to know.
All the technological advancements on the planet. Anything you want to talk about.
Go ahead. Okay.
Because
tell me this. Okay. If atheists are the people who we should be looking up to, and they are supposed to be holding up science as a banner, why didn't they come up with it? Why were the founding fathers of the fields of physics, chemistry, biology, psychology, sociology, anthropology theists?
Because that was the dominant...
Wait, let me finish. Then I'll ask you a question. Now, in the 20th century, when we've made so much progress, you guys have decided to come out of your caves and say, well, this is all due to us. And I'm kind of like, that's rich. That's really rich. Where were you for the last 1,000 years?
We were all theists, or we were all hiding from theists, weren't we?
What? Okay, we agree you were guys in the caves, right?
In
But while you were in the
time,
cave, why couldn't you come up with a scientific method?
Yeah, stop shouting. Stop shouting.
No,
Just take it
no,
easy.
No.
Because this is an audience play for you. Just stop shouting.
Wait.
Your
All I'm here
where
to
was...
do. No, shall I tell you why I'm speaking
Keep
to you like
speaking,
this?
keep speaking,
Because
keep speaking.
you come to Speaker's Corner, and I've seen this a lot. I've even
Yes.
seen your videos.
Good.
You come and you try and confuse people with your nonsense. So I decided today I'm going to
So you're
walk
gonna
up
come
to you.
and-
I'm going to walk
you're gonna
up
come
to
and
you,
set me
and I'm
straight,
going
are
to
you?
get you to speak about your worldview on your own platform, and let's see if you actually know what you're talking about. So if you want me to speak a bit more calmly, I'm going to speak like a Quaker from now on. Good day, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, take it easy. Your claim was that where were all the atheists prior? And now we've come out of our caves, to use your word, and we're claiming credit for all the scientific discoveries. But
You are.
your claim is that no, theists did all of this, and we should therefore be subservient, or theism is in some way justified to be linked with science.
No, I never said that.
What is your claim about theism then?
You made the claim, sir, that science is somehow linked to atheism, right? You linked the increase in scientific knowledge to a decrease in belief in God. All I did was challenge that.
Okay, now
I'm going to be a Quaker, so if you interrupt me, I'll stop.
So that's not what I said. I said science is pushing back. In other words, the knowledge, where science is increasing, is pushing back the religious. In other words, some of the religious claims. I'm not saying that people in the world don't believe in God. Can we get that distinction?
Okay, so let's clarify. What's your claim? Your claim is science is getting rid of the intellectual foundations of religion?
So science is giving us a better understanding of the natural world, whereas in the past we would have looked towards a god or gods as an explanation. Now science is explaining things, and we need to less and less look towards the god. That does not mean that people are not going to believe in a god. That's the distinction.
That is predicated on the assumption that people believe in God because of God of the gaps.
Sure.
Right? Where on earth did you get that from?
Everybody that I speak to, whenever they bring up something about science,
So you're
they want to
judging-
include, they
you're-
want to put God in wherever they can.
Remember,
So
I'm
be
not-
it consciousness, rationality. How did evolution get started? The Big Bang, science, cosmology, anything where we don't yet have an answer. Now we can insert God. Where we have an answer, nobody here is going to claim that God is creating lightning. Why? Because we now have an understanding.
Okay, so your belief that people believe in God because of God of the gaps is based upon your conversations having in Speaker's Corner with people there.
It's well, when we look back in history, isn't it? We can look back in history as well, and we can go, hey, people were mightily ignorant about virtually everything in the natural world.
When?
All the time in the history.
No, that's not true.
So we didn't know about
That's
the germ
not-
disease. We didn't know that the Earth
Okay,
orbited the Sun.
okay,
We didn't know there was more than one galaxy.
Okay,
I mean,
one
go on
sec,
with
one
a
sec.
zillion things,
One
evolution,
sec,
whatever it is.
One sec. Now, there's one fallacy which we need to move away from and move on to another fallacy, which is about the ancients. Did you know the Greeks calculated the circumference of the Earth?
Of the Greeks, one guy, Eratosthenes. Yes?
Was he a Greek?
I don't know what he was. But
Okay,
you make
who
it
cares
sound-
if he's Greek?
Well, there you go.
He is Fuegian, all right?
There's one guy
But
who
he
calculated
existed 2,000 years ago. Okay. Did
280 BC. Yeah.
Okay, you're saying they didn't know that the Earth orbited the Sun? You're telling me no Greek knew that?
The Greeks knew it. But most people didn't. You guys didn't know it.
Okay, wait, 1 sec. How do you think they built the pyramids? Using
know.
mathematics and engineering, correct?
We don't know, do we? It's still a mystery.
Okay. 1,000 years ago, and that's quite a long time ago, we had Hassan ibn Haytham, who came up with the scientific method. Now, when he came up with the scientific method, if his belief was, I don't want to explore nature because that will make me decrease my belief in God because I believe in God of the gaps, then he wouldn't have come up with the scientific method, and nor would the other Muslims who actually did science at the time, and then the baton was passed on to medieval Europe. Now, what I find strange is your claim of God of the gaps. I want to know if you actually understand where this argument originated from as a formal argument.
No, I don't know where it originated.
It was actually
from.
about 400 years ago.
Do I need to know that?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
It was actually in Europe, where Christian philosophers, they wanted an argument for the existence of God, and there was many arguments for the existence of God, which I would say were quite fallacious, right? So one of them was this argument about, can you think of the most perfect being, and so forth. And one of the arguments that they actually came up with was the God of the gaps. And guess who critiqued them? Other Christian philosophers. We're talking about 400 years ago.
Was there any atheist philosophers at the time?
No. Yes, of course they were.
Were they?
Well, there was David Hume, right?
You said 400 years ago. Hume was a couple.
Okay, 400 years ago.
Let's keep our history.
Well, actually, about 2,000 years ago, some of the Greeks were atheists too.
Okay,
right?
we're going off on a tangent here.
We're not. Because what we're actually doing is this. We're unraveling some of the claims that you're actually making. And one of the things which I actually do want to challenge is this. Just recently we had this march about science, right? I'm sure you must have heard of it.
March about science, no.
You know, marching for science, right?
No,
and it's this march they had in the States where, you know, all these atheists come out and they're like, we're marching on the behalf of science, we're doing this, we're doing that, right? Now what I want to do is this. I want to make a claim. And I want you to challenge my claim if you think I'm wrong. I believe the vast majority of atheists who believe in Darwinian evolution, or they claim, you know, we believe in science, we believe in this, they believe in it not because they understand it, not because it makes sense, but purely because they've been socialized into it. And I'm going to make a secondary claim which is going to be very particular, which is I do not believe you understand anything about Darwinian evolution and you only believe in it because of socialization. Now that's a claim.
Correct.
So are you willing to challenge that claim?
Sure.
So I want you to tell me, how does bacteria lead to us?
How does bacteria lead to us? Through the process. Now, if you're going to ask me, I'm reading a book, 2 books actually at the moment. So I know you're the evolutionary guy, and I know many of your arguments. Well, you debated Aaron Ra, and you're one of the evolutionary guys. So one of the things you come to do here is try and steer towards evolution. So I will tell you up front that I'm not an expert on evolution. You know more potentially about it. You can get into finer details. What I will tell you is that I'm reading the book Why Evolution is True by Jerry Coyne.
I've got that.
Good. So maybe you need to debate Jerry Coyne on evolutionary psychology, etc. And also Dr. Alice Roberts.
Okay, so in that book, Why Evolution is True.
I'm reading it, yes.
Right, you're reading it, right?
Yes.
How many definitions of species are there?
I don't know, I'm not there yet, brother. Okay. Now you're going to cross-question me on the book. I said I'm reading it.
Okay, but I'll tell you.
Fine, go ahead.
There's at least 26. Okay? Now, if there's 26 different definitions of species, and the claim is, which I made originally, that people believe in Darwinian evolution, majority of atheists, including yourself, not because they understand it, because they're socialized into it, I want you to tell me which of those definitions, not 2 or 3, just tell me one of those definitions which Darwin used in The Origin of Species, which is the reason why you accept that the origin of species is correct.
Okay, so I want you to get away from this. You do this a lot. You keep going into Darwinism. Today it's the modern theory of evolution. Why do you keep talking back about Darwinism? It's like Nazism. People have moved on. The modern theory of evolution is a lot further advanced than what Darwin predicted in his time.
So
Would you agree with that? Genetics, DNA, etc. I'm not saying Darwin's wrong. It's been improved upon.
But that's a good question.
What I'd love to hear you say in the future, Subboor, is talk to people about the modern theory of evolution. Get rid of the word Darwinism, because that seems to me a straw man.
Okay, that's a very good point that you've made.
And I'm going to answer the rest of your
question.
No,
wait, 1 sec. That's a very good point that you've made, but it's incorrect, and I'll tell you why. The term Darwinism is not a term which I came up with. It is a term Alfred Russel Wallace, who was Darwin's contemporary, who disagreed with Darwin on human evolution, he coined. And till today, we have atheist evolutionary biologists, psychologists, and philosophers of science who use the term Darwinism as an academic term which refers to the idea that natural selection is the primary driving force of evolution. And they acknowledge the modern synthesis, of course. They include the subfields of population genetics, fossils, DNA, all of that, right? That's not the issue. The issue is Darwinism as a term is an academic term. So when I actually use it, I'm not using it in a derogatory way, like Nazism. And also you need to understand the reason why I use the term Darwinism or Darwinian evolution is because there's many different alternatives. So when we speak about the modern theory of evolution, if you said, Rob, well, refer to the modern theory of evolution. Well, which modern theory? Because we have orthogenetic evolution, we have evolution by natural genetic engineering, we have neo-Lamarckian evolution, we have neo-mutationism, we have evolution by self-organization and the acquirance of entire genomes. We have all these different evolutionary models. Most of them are non-Darwinian. So when I use the term Darwinism, Aaron Ra doesn't know what he's actually talking about, which is why in the debate he couldn't actually, all he could say is, well, you see in America there's a different definition to Darwinism than there is in the UK. That's pretty much all he said. So the reason why I make this distinction is because atheists who go around talking about this theory like it's the best thing since sliced bread do not even know the basic definition. So my original claim that the majority of atheists don't even understand Darwinism, including yourself, has just been proven correct.
If you think so, that's fine.
Because you don't know the basic terms.
I'm reading the book. Do I need to be an expert on everything? If we have a cosmological, if I bring my friend here who's a cosmological expert, and he says to you, oh, well, you don't understand this, that means it's proven right? Come on, Subboor.
No, what?
Just because I don't know specifics.
I'm making a particular claim. Tell me if I'm wrong.
I've told you.
You only believe in it because of socialization. You don't understand it.
I believe in it because it's a naturalistic explanation for how we get here.
Sure.
I am reading books on it. That's why I believe in it.
So you understand it?
I don't understand it fully.
Thank you. Thank you. That's what I'm looking for. Just admit it. You don't understand
Does anybody understand anything fully, to use your term?
That's fine. Do you know what you call that? You call that basically just pressing the red button, just make everything explode. Oh, we don't really know anything, you know. Is that leaf really green?
I thought you were going to be a Quaker.
Oh, sorry, I am a Quaker. Is that leaf really green? Because it actually kind of looks like it's a reflection in all the other colours in the spectrum of actually being observed.
Disingenuous.
Well, he's making sense actually.
No, actually, what I'm doing is this. You have your little YouTube channel, speakers, whatever it's called, right? You come around here, you're trying to talk to people, right?
Yes, I have.
I came here just to show you do not have a clue what you're talking about. Unless if you want to challenge that, that's fine. Or else I'm going to walk away with that last bottom line. You don't have no idea how Darwinian evolution works.
I have a basic idea, that's it. If you're going to question me
okay,
deeply,
let's check your basic idea.
What's
your basic idea?
Natural selection through mutation. That's the basic idea.
Natural selection through mutation.
Through mutation.
Natural selection through mutation. Okay.
Now you're going to question me further on.
Let me tell you that. Let me just tell you something. And do you know what? I'm not someone who gets angry often, right? But I'll tell you something that does really piss me off.
Please do.
When somebody tries to make claims and you shoot down those claims, and then as you've beaten them on the floor, they decide to shout something back at you. You're like, huh, what did you say? And then they try and defend themselves. So you're telling me the basic that you understand about Darwinian evolution is this. It's natural selection plus mutation. Well, guess what? That's not even Darwinism. It's natural selection plus random mutations.
So what?
If it's natural selection plus mutations, guess what it becomes? Epigenetics.
So
autogenetic evolution. So even you yourself, even though you were slapped on the floor, you said, no, I do understand something.
Come back to the Quaker.
Oh, I'm a Quaker, sorry. And you do come back to something, which is, I do understand something basic, which is, I'm not going to give you any evidence of how biodiversity came, how, you know, biochemistry, genetics, anatomy, biochemistry, linguistics, how all of this fits within the evolutionary model. I'm just going to tell you, this is what I understand, two friggin' terms, mutation and natural selection, and you still got it wrong.
Quaker.
You still got it wrong. So like I said again, sorry, I should be a Quaker.
So effectively you don't know the basics.
No. You stripped down evolution to two terms and you got them wrong. So here's what I'm going to do. You don't understand Darwinian evolution. You've only been socialized into it. That's my claim. If you're not challenge that claim, I'm going to stay. If you don't want to challenge it, I'll walk away, and that's the bottom line. You and the rest of those atheists, they have no idea what they're talking about.
Darwinian evolution is a trick, man.
Okay, so
are you going to challenge my claim?
Sure.
Go on.
Okay. So the reason why we believe in naturalistic processes is because most of the things that have been explained on this planet have been explained through natural processes. So is it reasonable to believe that we can explain most, if not everything, within our universe in some naturalistic way?
Okay, that's a good question, and I'm actually totally happy to move on to that question. It's a separate discussion. So let's close the previous discussion and start this.
But you asked me the question, why do atheists believe in evolution? Because it's socially constructed?
Sure. Okay, now let's move on to this discussion about naturalism.
But that was the answer.
So
to your
you
question.
said most of the things have been explained via naturalism.
Correct. Yes.
Correct. Okay. Here's what I'm going to
Do
say.
you agree or not?
I'm just going to say something. Not only do atheists not understand Darwinian evolution, they don't even understand science. And I'll tell you why. Most of the things can be explained naturalistically. Can reason be explained naturalistically?
It's a naturalistic byproduct, isn't it? A byproduct of naturalism.
That's an assumption.
But now you're going on to something different. I said most of the
it's
things.
not. You said most of the things can be explained naturalistically, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Most things in our natural world.
Okay.
Yes.
Our ability to reason, can it be explained naturalistically?
There are theories, as far as I understand, like emergent materialism, like evolutionary reliability.
Emergent materialism?
These are some of the theories.
Emergent materialism?
These are some of the theories.
What the hell is that?
Have you not heard of that?
I do know exactly what that is, but
Okay.
that's got nothing to do with this discussion.
You're asking me what.
You're using, you know what you're doing? Sorry. I need this guy next to me. He's so calm.
I'm the calm one.
Okay. I got so angry I lost what I was saying. What was I actually
You want to
saying?
stop?
He's talking about this.
You want to stop?
No. Emergent materialism. So here's
Quaker,
why,
Quaker,
as a
Quaker.
Quaker, I feel like breaking my biscuit rather than getting peed off. This is what atheists do. When they don't understand something or when they want to sound clever, they throw a term out. Emergent materialism. Emergent materialism is an explanation, a type of explanation for consciousness, not the original reason. So what you just did is, when you didn't know an answer, you just decided to throw out a philosophical term to sound clever. The original reason, according to atheists themselves, including Alex Rosenberg, who is a full-out atheist, militant atheist according to him, who actually is an anti-theist. He's a philosopher of science. This is what he says. He was sitting in a meeting, and the meeting was called Moving Naturalism Forward. In the meeting, you had all of the atheist pimps. You had Richard Dawkins. You had that old guy who should be in a coffin, Steven Weinberg. You had all these different people sitting down. And while he's sitting there, they were talking about moving naturalism forward. Alex Rosenberg, everybody had to put out an issue on the table, which is an issue which is outstanding for naturalism to move forward. And guess what Alex Rosenberg said? We have no explanation for the origin of reason.
Okay, so let's break it down. What is
I'm
the?
a Quaker, sorry. Yeah.
You've forgotten. That's okay. What do you understand by the origin of reason? What do you mean by reason?
Okay. Again, we've moved on. I am happy to move on to this discussion. Totally
But
happy.
you've just-
But as long as you concede that it's a different discussion to what we're having, that's fine.
You brought it up. I didn't bring up reason, did I? I said
No,
to you,
you
science,
said everything.
As an
I
naturalistic
said-
explanation.
You said
I
things.
said
You said most of the things that we know can be explained naturalistically.
I said most things in the world we can explain through the scientific method or naturally. Yes.
Okay, naturally. All knowledge is self-knowledge because it goes through you. And what does it go through? A reasoning process.
And what's
So
the foundation?
all I asked is this: is there an explanation for the origin of reason? You said yes, and I just showed you that even according to atheists, there is none.
So explain to me what reason is, because you brought
That's
it in.
fine. I'm happy to move on to that discussion.
No, that's part of the same discussion.
No, I am happy to move on to that discussion as long as you concede on another point that you have no idea what you're talking about.
If you're going to keep saying that, then I think there's no point in continuing to talk, because when I ask you a question and it's part of your initial assertion, then you say we're moving off topic.
No, because what
you claimed that
what I
science
want to
can't
do is
explain
this.
the
What I
origin
want to
of
do is
reason.
this. Another thing the atheists do is this. They always run off to a different topic. The topic that I want to speak about right now is this. You made a claim that most of the things that we know can be explained naturalistically. And I asked you about the origin of reason. You said that too, and I showed you not that. Now you're asking me, what is reasoning, or what is the origin of reason? So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to say, Rob, you know what? Fantastic. We had a great conversation. I'm going to go back to my Quaker mode. We'll move on to that. I'm happy to do that. But that's a separate discussion. That's all I'm saying. That's a separate discussion. I'm happy to go into what the origin of reason is from my understanding. Totally happy, but it's a separate discussion.
Yes, and your claim was that I can't account for it. That's
Point of view, the origin of reason is a thorn. And do you know the first person to know that this is actually a really big problem was actually Darwin himself. Because Darwin said, how can I accept that, the convictions of a monkey's mind? How can I accept that? How can I accept our own convictions in our mind if we evolved and we have a common ancestor with them? Now, the co-founder of the theory of natural selection, along with Darwin, Alfred Russel Wallace, another atheist, he actually moved away from Darwin, which is why we call it Darwinian evolution, not Darwin and Wallace's theory, how it was known in Victorian times, because he moved away from Darwin. He said Darwinian evolution is true for everything except human beings. And why did he say this? He said this because of savages, which they used to call anybody who was basically in South America or Africa, right? Savages, if you take them to Europe, they can do maths, they could do physics, they could do psychology. So Alfred Russel Wallace said, do you know what? Darwinism cannot, or natural selection cannot explain this reasoning capacity, which is way more than you need for survival and reproduction, which is why he moved away from Darwin. Now what actually happened was this: Darwin got peed off, so he wrote a letter to Alfred Russel Wallace, and do you know what he said? He said, don't murder our child. Because if you both come out and you say this is our theory, and one of you says, actually, I don't think it makes sense in terms of human beings, you make the theory look bad. So the origin of reason, it is a very complicated area, but the bottom line is, from a Darwinian perspective, there is no explanation.
Let's assume for the sake of argument that there is currently not an explanation for that. Is that okay?
We're not going to assume.
No, we're not going to. Okay.
We are going to say, from a naturalistic point of view, it is impossible to give a origin of reason explanation in terms of survival and reproduction.
Does it need to be just survival and reproduction?
Well, what you could do is you could reject Darwinism and go with something else.
No, I'm just asking. Does it have to be on that? Because remember, we've moved on from just survival and reproduction, haven't we? We're not just in the survival reproduction mode, if you want to call it that, now. Would you agree with that? We're not just doing that now.
Well, yes, but also what you need to understand is, from a Darwinian perspective, when there is something which sticks out like a thorn, which is not survival and reproduction, it is so easy to give a label to that mystery and say it's an evolutionary byproduct. So hospitals, survival of the unfittest, evolutionary byproduct. If you do that, there's no point in having a conversation, because it's an unfalsifiable hypothesis. Because anything that fits in line with survival and reproduction, you say, hey, that's mine, survival and reproduction. Anything that doesn't, you say, well, it's a byproduct.
No, but we could do exactly what you've said, which is we could say, hey, it's a mystery, we're still trying to work out how that is.
No, I don't want to say it's a mystery.
No,
I want to say from an atheistic perspective, it makes no sense. And since atheists pretend to be clever, and they pretend to be rational, and they pretend to throw out terms which they don't understand, then how dare they claim they are rational when they can't give an explanation for the origin of reason? When I, as a Muslim, I can say, well, do you know what? Have a good day. If you want to pretend to be clever, that's absolutely fine, but you can't even give an explanation for the origin of reason.
Okay, so what sort of explanation would satisfy you?
Wait. I never said there's an explanation that's going to satisfy you.
No, not any.
I said there is no satisfactory explanation from your perspective when you guys pretend to be so clever.
Okay, but you said it was impossible, correct?
From a naturalistic point of view, yes.
Okay, so can you demonstrate why that's impossible?
Okay, I'll demonstrate not why I think it's impossible, but why philosophers of science like Alex Rosenberg believe it's impossible.
You tell me.
Okay,
because you're throwing out names, but just tell me.
Here's why. If I want to survive, because all that they actually have in terms of a worldview, are you paying attention?
Yes, I am. I'm making a note here.
All that they have is survival and reproduction as an explanation for biochemistry, genetics, anatomy, psychology, linguistics. That's all they have. So the problem comes when you try to give an explanation about true and false beliefs. That's one layer of problem. So say that mushrooms. Now, some mushrooms are poisonous. Now, you can survive on a false belief, which is that all mushrooms are poisonous. You can survive on that belief. So if you can survive on a true belief, and if you can survive on a false belief, how can you make a distinction between the two? You can't. So what the actual fundamental problem from that layer is, how can we say our mind is trustworthy when our mind wasn't geared for truth but survival.
Okay, so one of the ones that I've heard and is of interest to me that I'm studying is...
Do you understand it, or are you socialized into it?
I'm looking into it.
No, are you socialized or do you understand it?
Socialized means that I've just grown up with it, isn't it?
No. Society is saying, woo, 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 this thing's true, so you say it's true too. It's like sheeps following each other.
Is that what
And
you
I-
really think
no.
atheists do?
I truly believe 100% that's exactly what they do, and I made that claim that you do that too.
100% of the atheists?
Yes.
Well,
It's a social thing.
exception, I guess.
It's a social thing.
Because people study, like literally, they do have the curiosity to study. They read books, they go.
Sure. So can I tell you one reason why it's totally false? This whole new atheist movement, based on this total nonsensical idea that there's no God. I'll tell you why it's totally false, and they're all sheep. Every single new atheist. I'm not referring to somebody who's confused about God. I'm referring to new atheism. Why they're a bunch of sheep is because of this. The book that they follow, the God delusion, the central argument that they follow in that Bible is a 6-step process, and that's called the central argument. And that central argument, it basically is this. Darwinism gives an explanation of biodiversity, so we don't need a designer to explain that. Therefore, the conclusion that Richard Dawkins, their prophet, makes is their God almost certainly doesn't exist. Now, Charles Darwin himself would have disagreed with that conclusion. This is why neo-atheism is based on a falsehood. Darwin was never an atheist. He was a deist. He believed there was a God, but not a personal God, not Christianity or Islam or anything like that. The last decade of his life, because of the problem of evil, he became an agnostic. But he still said, my beliefs about God fluctuate. Sometimes he's a deist, sometimes he's an agnostic. So this whole movement online that you see, all these videos that you see, all these people that you say, oh, evolution is true, therefore there's no God, or Darwin got it right. Even the founder doesn't agree with that. Plus, Richard Dawkins in an interview, do you know what he said? He was saying with Lawrence Krauss, he said, there's a perception that if you believe in evolution, you have to be an atheist. This perception's false. Because this fluctuates. One second. Because this perception, the perception exists that because evolution is true, therefore there's no God. He says that this perception is wrong. But because this perception exists, that to believe in evolution you have to disbelieve in God, he says all I have to do is prove to people that evolution is true, therefore God doesn't exist. So he is feeding on the ignorance of people.
But that's not 100% of the atheists.
Okay, this is a
Your
new atheism.
premise was
New atheism. New atheism. New atheism. I'm not referring to every single Tom, Dick and Harry who's confused about God. I'm referring to new atheism, which I believe Rob is part of.
Well, okay, so I don't subscribe.
Are you part of that?
I don't subscribe to that, so no.
Oh, that's great.
So you should ask
So
ahead of
when
time.
you refer to people like Essence
So,
of Thought,
but-
when you refer to people like Aaron Ra, when you refer to people like Richard Dawkins, they are.
Well, I didn't refer to Richard Dawkins, did I?
Essence of thought.
Jerry Coyne, sorry.
Jerry Coyne.
Okay,
So-
Jerry Coyne is.
Jerry Coyne is what?
He's a new atheist.
Your claim about a new atheist, yeah.
No, he is one.
If you say so, I don't know what,
So
what he
is
labels
Aaron
himself.
Ra not one?
You tell me. I don't know.
Okay, so when they
He's
have
just an atheist.
conferences,
What's the difference?
well, it's a new brand. It's an old idea.
By the
it's
way-
an old underwear or whatever. They just cleaned it out and they just want to start wearing it again. It's nothing new. The only difference between the new atheist and the old atheist, like Nietzsche, is this: Nietzsche was honest because he understood, from a naturalistic point of view, words, meanings, actions are all meaningless. This whole universe, just how irrational as it is, if an apple falls off a tree, falls on a tree and cuts in two, it's a rearrangement of atoms. Likewise, if I bludgeon myself with a hammer, there's no difference because it's rearrangement of atoms. That's why neo-atheism is different to old atheism.
Neo-atheism?
The new atheism.
New atheism.
New atheism is different to old atheism because old atheism was at least not hypocritical. They knew there was no meaning of life. They knew there's no such thing as rights, values, morals. These are all social constructs. They knew this. But you guys pretend like you have something when you don't.
That's your assertion.
No, I'm happy to make that assertion. I want to know if you can challenge it.
Tell me which one.
Life is meaningless, and it's nothing but the rearrangement of carbon under an atheistic worldview.
Okay, so you mean there's no. So if I reinterpret what you say, if that's okay, you tell me if I'm right or wrong. So if there's no cosmic why, then we're just carbon. The fact that I can give myself my own life meaning, that's not good enough for you. For some reason, there has to be a cosmic why. There has to be a cosmic reason for the universe being the way it is. And if there isn't, then we're just matter.
Okay. I'm not sure if you understand what the problem here is. The problem, as pointed out by Nietzsche, is this. This idea of self, of me, of I, of meaning, of morals, of values are nothing but the products of nature. And if you rerun the wire, you know, in the old days we used to have the VHS tapes. If you go back and rewind time and then you push it forward again, there'll be a completely different set of morals, values and meanings.
Who makes that claim?
This is a claim that Darwin believed in. This is a claim which Steven Pinker believes in. The analogy is taken from another atheist, Stephen Jay Gould, and back in his days in the 80s and 90s we only had VHS. That's why he used the analogy of the tape. He said if you rewind and then play again, you just get a completely different set. Therefore, it's arbitrary.
What is arbitrary?
All meaning, value, all of these things, they're just one outcome of many.
But we can give ourselves, we can give our lives.
No, sure, that sounds really nice, but Nietzsche would have disagreed with you. He would have said, that's just self-delusion. That's just some kid who is about to get hit by a football and he closes his eyes. He's like, no, it's gone now.
Why would you say that?
No, why would I say that? I'm not saying that because I believe in God. I'm saying Nietzsche said that, and Nietzsche argued for that, and the reason why he believed in this is he believed Europe is going to go through a crisis of existence in the future, because it's going to, right now it's in this delusion state, it's coming out of the intoxication of religion, and it has values, meanings, morals, but eventually it's going to realize it's nothing, and that's when it's going to go mad.
Why on earth would you think that?
Nietzsche.
Yeah.
He believed that if there is no God, there is no purpose, there is no objective meaning, all that we are is the rearrangement of carbon, then anything, any action that we take is as meaningful as a leaf dropping from a tree.
That sounds, dare I say it, ridiculous.
Okay, well, look, read Nietzsche's book on Darwinism.
The fact that
it's actually called Nietzsche's Darwinism, published by Oxford. Read that.
Nietzsche's
Darwinism.
Nietzsche's Darwinism. Okay, and so why should I take that as truth, or why should I pay attention to that? My life and any other atheist or non-believer's life, we can give ourselves.
Okay, so why would you disagree with Nietzsche? Because I gave you why Nietzsche believes what he believes. So if I was Nietzsche and you were here, how would you explain how your worldview is different to mine, firstly?
Is your worldview as Nietzsche a theistic worldview?
No, he was an atheist.
How was he an atheist?
Of course he was an atheist.
Right.
Okay? So, how is your worldview different to mine?
So I would say to Nietzsche, well, I can give my life meaning. I can have interactions with people, I can try and find truth, I can go for love, etc., etc. What's wrong with that?
He would say this is just dopamine.
Why would he say that?
Dopamine is a chemical.
No, I know what dopamine is. Why would he say that?
Because that's what it is.
Why would he say that? What justification is this? In other words,
that's science.
Is he claiming?
Right, you love science, right?
Sure.
So love is a chemical.
Partly a chemical, but it's an interaction with the brain, isn't it? And
right.
You have a chemical here, and you give it a label.
Right. So it's all chemicals.
No, it's not all chemicals. Well, it is chemicals in a sense.
Wait, hang on a second.
Hang on a second as well, because not just biological chemicals.
Life is. This is. Look. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I seem. Look. When you say you're an atheist, I'm assuming you believe that biology can be broken down into chemistry, which can be broken down into physics, which can be broken down into maths. Because that's the standard view of the atheist. Thank you for nodding. And I'm guessing you're an atheist. If that is the case, then what's wrong with all of our feelings being just chemicals? Because you sound like an upset atheist. Like an upset atheist. You don't like the idea that it's all chemicals.
Is consciousness chemicals?
Well, firstly, there's different definitions of consciousness, and it depends whether you believe the hard problem of consciousness exists. So that's a different issue. I don't know if you believe in that.
I'm not entirely sure, but I do know that we have consciousness. Would you agree?
Well,
And consciousness is.
Of course, but it depends what you mean, because according to some people, consciousness is the brain at work. According to other people, consciousness is a part of the universe, panpsychism. According to other people, emergent materialism. Now's the time to bring it in, because actually now we're talking about something correct, in the correct context. So it depends what you actually mean, but from a biochemical point of view, life breaks down to biochemistry from your point of view. Even consciousness, if you're a pure naturalist.
I don't know that it breaks down to biological as a naturalist. I can't say that for sure with consciousness.
Well,
because we don't
that's
know.
That's what atheism entails, unless you're not an atheist.
I am an atheist.
Okay, so you
But
believe believe in naturalism, things are natural, correct?
So I'm a methodological naturalist.
You're a methodological naturalist? So am I. I thought you were a philosophical naturalist.
No.
So you don't believe everything can be broken down into nature?
I believe that nature or the world around us is what we can investigate. Outside of that, I don't claim, and I never have here at Speaker's Corner, that a god or gods is impossible. I say I don't believe in it, and I reject the theist claim.
So why are you trying to give an explanation of reason, of evolution, of these things naturalistically?
Because that seems to be the most reasonable way. What other explanation am I going to give? Something outside of the universe?
No. The question is this. Whenever you want to use nature, whenever you want to use methodological naturalism, you're going to say, okay, let's try and work out things naturalistically.
Correct.
That's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But your claim is very different, because your claim is atheism. You believe there is not a God.
I believe there's not a God,
Now,
yes.
with science explains how things work, not why things exist in the first place. That's metaphysics. So when it comes to God is an explanation of why things exist.
Okay, but
science can explain how things work. So what's your problem with God then?
you want to ask my problem with God?
Yeah.
Okay. So many things. One is, I think it's which God, by the way, before we carry on? Which
Okay,
God?
Darwin's God, deistic God.
Deistic God is less. I've got less of a problem with a deistic God. It still has to overcome a burden of proof for me for existing. But a theistic version of God, and let's use your one, I've got a lot more problems with.
Okay, go ahead.
Sure. So I think your God is irrational, immoral. There's contradictory omni properties as well.
Okay, wait. Let's go with the first thing you said. Irrational.
Yeah.
You believe it's irrational to believe in God.
No, I didn't say it's irrational to believe in God. I said God, the concept of God. Your concept of God is
now,
irrational.
and it's a good segue, what you just said now, to something that we spoke about half an hour ago, which is this. We spoke about the origin of reason being a problem for atheism, right? You're saying the belief in God is irrational. Let me link these two and tell you something which I want you to challenge. The existence of God is the only explanation for rationality.
Yes, I've heard that.
You've heard that, but do you believe it's true? Do you believe it's wrong?
Okay, so what do you mean by rationality?
Our ability to think, reflect, infer, do science, do maths, use experience, have intuition.
Okay, so and your claim is that the only way we can account for this is through God.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's again where I would go back to emergent materialism or evolutionary reliability.
Okay.
Reliability.
Please,
should I
Rob.
say.
I was a Quaker, and you're going to turn me into a Speaker's Corner shouting guy again. Do not use terms you don't understand. Origin of reason has nothing to do with emergent materialism.
It has to do
It's
with
consciousness.
Okay, but
it makes you sound
Subboor,
clever, but it's got nothing to do with this.
Subboor,
Throw it out.
Stop shouting.
Throw it out. I'm a Quaker, and you made me break my biscuit again. When you speak about the origin of reason, it's very clever to use terms that you don't understand. That's fine. But what you need to do is give an explanation, not give a mystery a label.
So you asked for an account of rationality, yes?
Here's my claim. Here's my claim. From an atheistic point of view, there is no explanation for the origin of reason. From a theistic point of view, there is. Not a deistic point of view or a theistic point of view, there is.
Okay, and what is that?
So there's two claims I make. So we're not going to speak about the atheistic. We're going to accept that claim.
What do you? So your account, or you want me to give an account of rationality? Yes.
You've already shown you can't do that, so let's move on to my claim.
No, let's not do that. Let's not do that. What is rationality based on? What is it based on? What's the foundation of rationality?
Like I told you a few minutes ago, there's a whole bunch of definitions of rationality.
Where does it? You want to talk about?
Where does it actually reside? The ability to reason, the ability to infer.
What is the foundation of that?
What do you mean? What's the foundation?
Is the foundation for that our consciousness, our minds? Can a rock rationalize? Can an animal rationalize?
Okay, wait 1 second. You keep doing this. You keep talking about things which are irrelevant to the discussion. Why do you bring in consciousness
because
with
I want
reasoning?
to understand what your foundation is.
No,
underneath
what you're doing is this,
rationality.
Rob. You're using terms which make you sound clever, but you don't understand them. How can you say the origin of reason is within consciousness?
Can animals, because you want me to give an account of rationality, can animals rationalize things?
Okay.
Or is it only humans that can do it?
No, animals can reason too. How on
Not-
earth? Wait, 1 second. 1 second.
You asked for
How on
rationality.
earth do you think they make these amazing beehives?
Don't jump.
No.
You asked me about
Wait.
rationality. Don't talk about reason and rationality. They're different. You said, how do they reason? I'm asking you rationality. You said to me,
Reason and rationality are different. How so?
you asked me about rationality. Yes?
Reason and rationality, how are they different?
Just wait. You asked me about rationality.
Yep.
You said to me, I don't have a foundation. I want to know from you.
Yeah, you have no foundation.
Yes, I want to understand from you, what is rationality based on? Once we get down to what you believe rationality is based on, now we can have a conversation, because it's a term that's just floating out there. So give me the foundation. Is it based on a conscious mind?
Okay. Let me just take it this way. Not only I'm gonna just to save time, I'm gonna give you the full beans, and if you want to challenge it, you can challenge it. We have, as human beings, certain qualities. One of the main qualities that we actually have is the ability to reason. Now, the ability to reason is the thing which is going to lead you to truth or lead you to falsehood. In the Qur'an it says, the worst creatures in the sight of God are those who do not reason. And the people who will be sent to hellfire, which I believe atheists, as it says in Islam, will go to hellfire.
At least you're honest, I appreciate that.
Of course they will.
Because there's some Muslims who say, no, you won't. Or God will make a decision.
Well, I believe anybody who disbelieves in God as a category, they go to hell. But I don't believe a person, you can say, goes to hell. Because I believe even an atheist, if they die, and if God has mercy on them, they may go paradise. I can't say about a person. But as a category, atheists go to hell. Yeah, that's fine. Now, in regards to reasoning, in the Quran it makes it clear, when people will be sent to hellfire, the angels which are sending them to hellfire will ask them, did you not listen? Did you not reason? And they said no. What did they do? And this is what atheists do, like sheep. They just listen, they just follow, they don't even think for themselves. So that is the reason they're going to go to hell. Now, the reason why I, as a Muslim, I believe that reason has the best explanation in God is because of this. God as a concept is all-knowing, and we human beings also have knowledge. God is the one who created us, and He created us for a higher reason, for a higher purpose than survival and reproduction. So the problem, the quagmire that you're in, is that how do you distinguish between false beliefs and true beliefs when both help you survive? But as a Muslim, I'll say that's nonsense. I'll say truth is not a mechanism, truth is not a concept that we derive to help us survive. Truth exists because God is the truth. So from the truth in Arabic, God is called Al-Haq, the truth. So from the truth you get the concept of truth today as human beings. So we can reason, we can use our cognitive abilities because they are a God-given gift. That's a theistic explanation of the origin of reason. But from an atheistic perspective, all you can do is speak about survival and reproduction, which is something which cannot even account for the difference between us choosing whether a mushroom is poisonous or not. Which is why I believe, like I've said many times in our long conversation here, atheists, including yourselves, you do not understand what you're actually talking about, and it's all a social behavioral belief system. somebody is walking, they see there's a shop which is very, very busy, they see another shop which is not busy, social proof, they walk towards the crowd where there's more people. This sheepish behavior is exactly what atheists actually do, which is exactly what you are actually doing here in Speaker's Corner. And what I want you to do is this: whether it comes to the origin of reason, whether it comes to Darwinian evolution, whether it comes to the existence of God or the non-existence of God, I want you to just be honest and say, I'm a sheep. I believe because other people believe. It's much more honest for you. It's much more honest for you, Rob, to do that than to half pretend, well, I'm sort of reading a book on evolution, but I believe it to be true. I would actually respect you so much more if you did that.
Good. Well,
May I interject? Just
This guy thinks he's different.
look, there are 2 points which I want to point to tell you. First is that your logic that if God exists, we should believe in His word and see reality through His eyes. But that still requires that you prove the existence of God, and God created the man. So your logical conclusion is right, but you haven't yet proven the truthfulness of the premise, as that God exists and He created us, right? So there's no proof for that to get to the final conclusion. The next thing is that you said.
Okay. Because I was drinking. Could you just?
I'll let you speak.
No, could you say that again? I need to hear you out.
So your logic chain was correct, saying that if God created us, we should see.
No, I didn't say if. I said God did.
Yeah, but that's one of your premise to get to the conclusion. But you have to still prove the premise, which personally, as an atheist, that's why I am an atheist, because there hasn't been enough proof for me to believe in the existence of God that created me and gave me the reason that you are arguing about. The second moment I want to point out.
One thing at a time. I'm going to forget otherwise.
Okay, I'll let you do that.
One thing at a time. You speak about proof.
Yeah.
I just gave you a concept which is the origin of reason.
Shovel to him. He's starting to dig his hole.
let's see.
I just gave you an explanation of the origin of reason in terms of theism.
Yeah.
And what I did is I not only gave an explanation of the origin of reason according to theism, I also said it is impossible from an atheistic perspective to have an explanation for the origin of reason. Now you say proof, right? How can you use a term like proof when the term proof assumes rationality? Rationality doesn't make sense unless God exists. So the only thing that you have is this. You only have two possibilities right now. You can either say, yes, rationality does exist, the origin of reason does exist, and it's because of God. Or two, you can say it doesn't exist, and this argument doesn't make sense, but then the word proof is meaningless.
But then you're saying that I, as an atheist, I cannot reason just because I don't believe in God. But what is reason? Like the understanding of the consequences of your action? Is this like reasoning? Would that be considered reasoning? That you understand the consequences of your action. That is the basic factor for me.
That is one process of reason. Yeah.
And why is?
But what I'm saying is this. Look, let's just boil down to this, right?
Okay.
When people say, "Look, I'm an atheist. I need evidence. I need proof," but for them to ask proof, they're using their reason. They're using their rationality, and they cannot account for their rationality except by God.
But that's fine.
So what they're actually doing is this. They're asking for evidence, but them asking for evidence is evidence for the existence of God, but they don't realize it.
No, you're going in a kind of a circular type of argument.
Yes.
That it does like.
Okay,
for me to understand,
let me make
it.
Let me make it clear for you. I'm going to put it in another way, which is this: no God, no reason to trust your reason.
Okay, so
that's basically another way of saying what I just said.
So you're saying,
which is what I'm saying right now is exactly what people, atheist philosophers of science, when they speak about the origin of reason, this is what they're actually referring to. If naturalism is all that we actually have, we can't trust our reasoning capabilities. We have no explanation for it.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that you have to put God as an explanation for it.
Okay, but you've got two choices. Our reasoning abilities are trustworthy. no. If no is the case, everything we're saying is gibberish. If yes is the case, then the only explanation is a non-naturalistic one. So between these two, you've got two choices. You can either go with theism, or you can become a hypocritical atheist pretending to use reason but not counting for it.
No, you see, I'm not following this part. If you're saying, if we ought to trust our reason, we ought to believe there's God. That's what you're saying.
No, I'm saying not using your reason, because you can use your reason and be an atheist, a deist, a Hindu, a Taoist, whatever. That's irrelevant. The origin of reason, the explanation of this trait which distinguishes us from the animal world. The other animals can use reason, but our ability to go to space, to do quantum mechanics, to do all these things, this amazing quality that we actually have, which is far beyond what survival and reproduction requires. Survival and reproduction, just eat and mate, eat and mate, eat and mate. That's all it is. But we know as human beings, some of the most smartest human beings, they didn't use their reasoning abilities to survive and reproduce, such as even Richard Dawkins. Now Richard Dawkins is supposed to be a clever guy. Atheists love him. How many children does he have? One, from one wife. But that doesn't make sense from a Darwinian point of view. He should be bonking women all the time. If someone asks you, how many children do you have? I lost count. That is what Darwinian prediction would show. Yet he spends a lot of his time writing books against religion, but his writing of books against religion makes no sense from a Darwinian point of view.
Okay, no, I understand what you're saying.
Do you understand?
I understand what you're saying, but well, it still fits in my model of how we evolve as a species, as a society. Of course, well, it is. I think what I'm trying to say is, I think a society and a human being and a family, like if you're thinking just in terms of evolution, Darwinism, and survival, it has a higher chance of surviving if they actually explore, reason, think more than chimps or other animals did. And it makes perfect sense in this model.
Now, here's why it doesn't make sense within the model. And this is not according to me, this is according to mainstream evolutionary secular biologists.
Let's see.
It doesn't make sense because, one, we have reasoning abilities which far exceed the requirements of survival and reproduction. Two, we have natural selection, which is blind to anything which is true or false. Natural selection only sees that which gives it reproductive or survival value. This is why natural selection cannot distinguish between a true belief and a false belief. Even Steven Pinker, an evolutionary psychologist, he is probably the most well-known evolutionary psychologist in the world. He admits that natural selection has geared us for survival, not for truth. And reasoning is about arriving at that which is true, not that which helps you survive.
It's still, I don't see why this doesn't fit in the
Okay, do you
model.
know what? Here's what I recommend you do. Put together a little synopsis. Say, can Darwinian evolution explain the origin of reason? Get it peer reviewed, get it published, you will become a billionaire. This is big business. And the people who are involved, the people who are at the top, they agree. Even Darwin, like I said, he said, would I trust the convictions of a monkey's mind? No. So how can I trust a mind which evolved like that? So all that you actually have as an atheist is this. You have the claim of using your reason, but the only way of accounting for that is the very thing which you claim against and you define yourself against, which is theism.
It's again a circular type of thinking, but again, the fact that we don't yet understand
how is it circular? What I'm saying to you is exactly what evolutionary psychologists say.
But that doesn't.
So why are they doing circular reasoning? Not me. Why are they doing circular reasoning?
The only thing they are saying is that they just haven't found a way to show how this happened.
They're not saying we haven't found a way. They're saying we have found that natural selection only accounts for survival, not truth. They're not making a claim of ignorance, they're making a claim of knowledge.
Okay, I will stop at this point because that's my limitation of my knowledge, but I'll have to go back.
Evolutionary psychology, do you know what? There's a really important, I would say, what Darwin got wrong, right? Not getting Darwin wrong, right? It's a book on psychology, and it speaks about, evolutionary psychology, disagreements with Steven Pinker, a new approach. It's got all of this stuff, right? All of this field is got loads of vibrant people disagreeing with each other, but something that nobody disagrees with within the field is currently, as it stands, unless there is a revolution in the way that we think about biodiversity, we actually get rid of Darwin.
Which might happen.
Which we get rid of Darwin.
We can build on top of it.
We get rid of Darwinism,
but why
and we replace it with maybe a complete alternative. There is no explanation for the origin of reason.
So your choice is to put God in it.
No, my choice is this. There's two different things here. There is an explanation of the origin of reason from a philosophical point of view, in which I would say, yes, God is the best explanation.
Okay.
From a scientific point of view, I would take methodological naturalism and I'll say, go as far as you can.
But
look, don't think that religious people are anti-science.
No,
right?
I'm not saying
right?
that. I'm saying
it's
why
not,
would you jump
to a
conclusion
as simple
as
as
to say it's God-given?
Somebody's writing a mathematical formula on the board, and in between I rub off some of it and I just write God. It doesn't work like that. We don't believe in God of the gaps. We believe you take science as far as it goes, but we believe fundamentally science can explain how nature works, but why nature exists is a metaphysical question. And it's outside of the realm of science.
Okay. It's fine if you... But we didn't have any...
So we didn't disagree much?
No, it's not that we didn't disagree. I actually think we quite disagree on some.
No, we disagree on theology, but we can't disagree that currently, as it stands, there's no explanation for the origin of reason.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is I'm fine with it, and I'll just wait for another 50, 100 years or whatever there is to wait for the answer.
But the thing is this: there's two different things here. There is a scope. So science is based upon mathematics and logic, right? Now, science cannot give you an explanation of mathematics. You need pure logic for that, right?
Okay.
Science is based upon logic and based upon maths.
Yes.
So you can't use science to explain the thing that it's based upon. The origin of reason is a foundational problem, and from that you get the scientific method. So in the same way that science cannot explain its foundations, science cannot explain the origin of reason in a naturalistic point of view, unless you basically say, what we're going to do is we're going to take a anti-realist approach to science and say it only gives you workable models, and say this is the best workable model that we actually have. But you can't say it's true, you can just say it's a workable model.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's how you get to some models indeed that describe the reality. It's just for me, as an atheist, it just baffles me, why would I include in this model something that I have no proof of? Or evidence of. We
don't include God within the equations of science. God is the one who gave us the ability to reason. God is the one who gave us the Qur'an. He's the one who gave us the guy who's a Quranic scholar who came up with a scientific method. Science is a way of discovering knowledge about how the world works. We don't go within the equations of science or the sentences of science and rub out a few things and write God. We don't do that. We stay outside of that. We understand that science is an application of reason to the natural world. We go wherever science actually goes. Now, what we're actually speaking about when it comes to atheism or theism is not science. We're speaking about metaphysics.
It's fine.
Which is a different thing.
But now, the thing is that very so often religious people or theists or even books of religion claim to know how things work. They give a model of how things work, or show it, and then you had this rebuttal to Rob saying, you know, we had smart people 1,000 years ago, and you can't say, you know, that they were stupid people. No, they were smart people, but their model was based on something that, you know, it was based on putting God in many instances as saying, and we're sick because I'm sinful, or I did that.
Not everybody did that, and the people who actually, what they actually did is they didn't make a they didn't distinguish between science. Well, there was no science then, but you know, the natural world, and metaphysics.
Yes.
So it all became kind of like, you know, cause and effect. Is there even such a thing as cause and effect? Or is it that in between an angel comes or something like this, right? So I would say these are people who got their wires mixed up. They confused, they started adding God into areas where the explanation of God is an explanation which is not in contradiction with a naturalistic explanation. So I'm just going to give you something, right? So in the Qur'an, in chapter 67, which is the dominion, it gives an example of this sort of relationship. Now what it basically says is this. We just bring up 67. It says, God says, do you not see the birds up in the sky, flapping their wings? None holds them up except God.
Okay.
Now this verse has two types of explanation. It has a mechanical explanation and it has a metaphysical explanation. Surah Mulk.
Yeah.
Where's the verse on the bird? It's near the beginning. So it's giving you two types of explanation. So I, as a Muslim, the way I approach science is this. I approach science not as something which should take somebody away from God, and which is something which really annoys me when people try to use science as a tool to get people away from God. Science is a way of worship for me, because discovering about the world, understanding about the beauty of the world is something which should bring us closer to God rather than further away from God. Just recently I was reading about a beetle, and this beetle actually has these two liquids. It's called a bombardier beetle, right? It's got these two liquids in its butt, whatever it is, right? Yeah. And what it does is it has this explosion chamber. It sticks them in there, an explosion happens, and boom, it attacks its opponent.
Yeah.
Now when I look at that, it reminds me of the creative power of God. Yet we have people today who, when you try to look at nature and try to remember God and think, you know, look how amazing nature is, you have people who say, no, you can't do that because Darwin showed that there's no God, or Darwin showed that you can't reflect about nature in that way.
No, that's a silly argument.
That's a silly argument, and that's all I'm arguing against.
Yeah, but the other thing is, what say Darwinist theory comes in is from idea, say, in Christian, I don't know the Qur'an story, but in a Christian religion is that, you know, a female came out from a rib of a man.
Yeah.
So that sort of gives you a model of how things happened, which in that case evolution says it's probably not, because the model that we have shows that it's highly unlikely, and the understanding we're having, and there's no proof to show that this has happened, or no, let's say there's no any sort of evidence, like even that can show that.
Two different things.
So
here,
that's
right? Okay, two different things here. When it comes to the claims of science and what science can reach, and claims that we believe are from God, there's sometimes a clear discrepancy between the two.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to Darwinian evolution, theologically as Muslims, we know that it's based on a probabilistic framework with assumptions and disputes, but let's leave that aside. Theologically, where is the contradiction? You could say when it comes to human ancestry there is, but in regards to the rest of nature, the Quran is silent. But what we have to understand is when we use science to come to a particular conclusion, that conclusion may contradict a conclusion that is in the Quran, or something else that we derive from another field, maybe in something else. Now, just because there's a contradiction doesn't mean you say, right, this is wrong and this is right, or this is right and this is wrong, or both are wrong, or whatever. you can actually take an epistemic approach and say, well, science gives you workable models, and which are then falsified, and science is progressing and is changing over time. And we even have the case just about 70 years ago where there's a direct contradiction between science and the Qur'an. All the scientists in the world believed in some sort of eternal universe, steady state model or whatever, right? They believed in something like this. Einstein included it within his theory of relativity. Now, that contradicts the Qur'an, because the Qur'an says the universe has a beginning. Now, if I was a Muslim alive during the time of Einstein, I wouldn't go around challenging every single physicist. I would say, well, that's your science, you have a workable model, and that can change. Now we have Big Bang cosmology, which is in line with the Qur'an. Tomorrow, in 50 years' time, they could go back to the steady state model. So just because there's a contradiction between science and the Qur'an doesn't mean the Qur'an is wrong. Secondly, even today, in physics, we have general relativity, which is a really amazing model, lots of predictive power, and quantum mechanics, which is also very successful. Fundamentally, both contradict each other. Yet scientists don't say, I'm going to reject general relativity and I'm going to go with quantum mechanics, or they don't say, I'm going to go with quantum mechanics and reject general relativity. They say, let's see where both these horses go. So there's nothing wrong.
They contradict each other.
Well, they do, fundamentally. Which is why they're trying to come up with the theory of quantum gravity. They're trying to make up some sort of a synthesis, right? Science can only give you workable models, which can then be falsified. So that's all it can give you.
So now, my question would be, like, why me, or why would anyone, say, leave a book or a creator as the model for their, for their worldview, yes.
Okay, the thing what you have to do is, you have to first go back to the belief in God. Because without the belief in God, no claim makes sense from that perspective. So the question fundamentally is this: is there a God? For me, I would say God is a self-evident reality. God is not something which needs evidence. I have the concept of right and wrong within me. Right and wrong is not within a test tube. I don't have to measure it. You can't get a pH level of right and wrong. It's something within the human being, it's innate. So belief in God is a self-evident reality. It is true. Now, if I say come across someone who doesn't believe in God, I would simply say is this: the Qur'an tells us every single human being has an innate belief in God, which is sometimes covered by societal pressures and philosophies and ideas. And this the Qur'an refers to as the fitrah, the natural state that the human being is in. And what the Qur'an says is, when the human being, even if the human being is a disbeliever, when they get into trouble, and the Qur'an gives the example of being on a ship, and when you're on a ship and it's about to sink and there's waves and waves and waves coming, what happens? People turn to God. Save us from this and we will be grateful. That's what it says in the Qur'an. So the fitrah, which is the natural state that you're in, it can come out in two ways. When we use logic and reason, it can uncover the fitrah. When you have a spiritual experience, the fitrah is uncovered. So what I would say is just horses for courses. Some people are very spiritual, some people are very logical. So maybe you're more of a spiritual person. Maybe you need to have a spiritual experience to have an awakening. I would ask you, go home tonight, bow down to God and ask God to guide you, because the Qur'an says whoever God guides, no one can misguide.
Well, so I have been doing that for a Christian God, but
look, there's no such thing as a Christian God. There's God.
But look,
Christians, Muslims, Jews believe in the same God. All you need to do is this: don't say I'm asking the Christian God. Say I am asking God. And I believe Hamza, you're telling me about your story. He used to pray to just God, and God guides. Look, he's got a beautiful beard now.